The urge. What is the strongest force in life? What is the power that carries those who heed it from the bottommost pits of poverty to the top of the world, from the slums and ghettos to governorships and presidencies and the rulership of kingdoms? The urge for security, for assured subsistence and safety. When the first primitive water plants appeared, living in the saturated soil along the shores of the waters, you might think the creative force would have rested content for a while. It had created something that lived and grew and reproduced itself. It was the first form of life upon this earth, the thallophytes. As with the water plants, there came next to the multiple-celled creature, each dependent for life upon drawing its own nourishment from the waters about. Then a central system corresponds with the stem and roots of the fern and finally evolves into distinct organs to take care of each function of life. And so was laid the foundation for all forms of animal life that have developed from this simple beginning. The principle had been perfected, it remained now only to develop every possible ramification of it until the highest forms should be reached. When means of protection were found necessary for survival, the creative force developed these too. For those subject to the abrasive effects of sand and rocks, it developed shells. To the weak, it gave means of escape. To the strong, teeth and claws with which to fight. It fitted each form to meet the conditions it had to cope with. When size was the paramount consideration, it made the Gigantosaurus, over 100 feet long and as big as a house, and all the other giant monsters of antiquity. When smallness was the objective, it developed the tiny insects and water creatures, so little that it takes a powerful microscope to see them, yet so perfectly made as to form organisms as exact and well-regulated as the greatest. Size, strength, fierceness, speed, all these it developed to the last degree. It tried every form of life, but each had its weaknesses, each was vulnerable in some way. The creative force might develop forms that would grow, but nothing physical could be made that would be invulnerable, that would ever attain security. No, there must be some better method, something above mere physical growth or propagation, in the realm of the intellect, of mind-eye. So the creative force turned its attention to this new channel of development. And man was made. In the entire vegetable kingdom, and in all the animal kingdom excepting man, each form of life is confined in its expression to evolving more and more of its own kind, and attaining a degree of security for it. It may build its own shelter, it may find better ways of securing food, but these are largely means to an end, the end of propagating its species. The creative force works through them only to make more of the same. And how it does work to that end. A single insect, the Stylonychia, increases so fast that if it were not for its almost equally rapid death rate, it would in a single week raise a mass of insects equal in size to the whole earth. Rodents breed so rapidly as quickly to become a pest when unchecked. Anyone who has read Ellis Parker Butler's story Pigs as Pigs knows how quickly guinea pigs increase, and the same is true of practically all the lower forms of life. Where the creative force is confined to the physical, its only outlet is through reproduction. Only in man can the creative force express itself through other means than propagation. Only he has an intellect capable of grasping concepts and ideas. Where the lower forms of life must give their entire time to finding shelter and sustenance and reproducing their species, man has used his intellect to such good purpose that these elementary needs occupy but a small part of his time. That leaves him leisure to express something more than the mere animal in him mind. To man has been given the job of emulating his maker, of becoming a creator, finding new and broader and better ways through which to express the creative force in him. His is the work of creating beauty, or bringing more comfort, joy, and happiness into the world. To every living thing on earth is given a measure of creative power. Of the lower forms of life, all that is required is that they bring forth fruit according to their kind, some 30, some 60, some 100-fold. Of you, however, much more is expected. To bring forth fruit according to your physical kind is good, but that is no more than the animals do. More is required of you. You must bring forth fruit according to your mental kind as well. You are a son of God, a creator. Therefore creation is expected of you. You are to spread seeds not merely of humankind, but of the intellect as well. You are to leave the world a better place than you found it, with more of joy in it, more of beauty, of comfort, of understanding, of light. The real purpose of life is an expression, the constant urge onward and upward. Even in the smallest child, you see evidence of this. It plays with blocks. Why? To express the urge in him to build something. The growing boy makes toys and builds a hut. The girl sews dresses, cares for dolls, cooks, plays house. Why? to give vent to the inner urge in each, struggling for expression. They reach the period of adolescence. They dance, they motor, they seek all manner of thrill. Why? Again, to satisfy that constant craving of the creative force in them for expression. True, at the moment, it is mostly a physical urge. But in some way, that urge must be translated into a mental one and satisfied. It must be given an outlet for expression. It must be brought into the light of day, given useful, uplifting work to do, and it will then bring forth abundant fruit of happiness and accomplishment. Because no matter how it is repressed, no matter how deep it is buried in dark cellars, the creative force will still bring forth fruit, only then it may be fungus growths of sin and misery. Through every man there flows this creative force, with infinite power to draw to itself whatever is necessary to its expression. It doesn't matter who you are, what your environment or education or advantages, the creative force in you has the same power for good or evil. Mind you, that force never brings forth evil. Its life is good. But just as you can graft onto the trunk of the finest fruit tree a branch of the upas tree, and thereupon bring forth deadly fruit, so can you engraft upon the pure energy of your creative force any manner of fruit you desire. But if the fruit is bad, it is you who are to blame, not the perfect force that flows through you. To every man there openeth a highway and a low, and every man decideth the way his soul shall go. What is it makes a poor immigrant boy like Edward Bach overcome every handicap of language and education, to become one of the greatest editors the country has ever known? Isn't it that the more circumstances conspire to repress it, the stronger becomes the urge of the creative force in you for expression? The more it lacks channels through which to expand, the more inclined it is to burst its shell and flow forth in all directions. It is the old case of the river that is dammed generating the most power. Most of us are so placed that some opportunity for expression is made easy for us. And that little opportunity serves as a safety valve to a boiler. It leaves us steam enough to do something worthwhile, yet keeps us from getting up enough power to burst the shell about us, and sweep away every barrier that holds us down. Yet it is only such an irresistible head of steam as that which makes great successes. That is why the blow which knocks all the props from under us is often the turning point in our whole career. As Walt Whitman put it, oh, while I live, to be the ruler of life, not a slave. To meet life as a powerful conqueror. And nothing exterior shall ever take command of me. You cannot stand still. You must go forward or see the world slide past you. This was well illustrated by figures worked out by Russell Conwell years ago. Of all the thousands who are left fortunes through the deaths of relatives, only 1 in 17 dies wealthy. Why? Because the fortunes left them to take away the need for the initiative on their part. Their money gives to them easy means of expressing the urge in them, without effort on their part. It gives them dozens of safety valves, through which their steam continually escapes. The result is that they not only accomplish nothing worthwhile, but they soon dissipate the fortunes that were left them. They are like kettles, the urge of life keeping the water at boiling point, but the open spout of ease letting the steam escape as fast as it forms until presently there is not even any water left. Why do the sons of rich men so seldom accomplish anything worthwhile? Because they don't have to. Every opportunity is given to them to turn the creative force in them through pleasant channels, and they dissipate through these the energies that might carry them to any height. The result? They never have a strong enough head of steam left to carry through any real job. What shall I do to be saved? Begged the rich young man of Jesus. Sell all that thou hast, give it to the poor and follow me, the master told him. Churches have used that to prove that poverty is necessary for salvation. But is that the lesson the biblical writer meant to convey? If so, why is there no record of Jesus having ever given similar advice to Nicodemus, or Joseph of Arimathea, or any others of the rich who sought the counsel of him and at whose houses he frequently stopped? Isn't the difference that these latter had made their mark in the world express the creative force in them to some worthwhile purpose, and in the expressing of it, the creative force had increased and multiplied and brought back to them goodly harvests of riches? The young man, on the other hand, had done nothing to earn all the good things that were his. His life had been cast in pleasant places. The spirit in him urged its need of expression, but Jesus saw that only by getting away from his life of ease was any worthwhile expression possible. And the young man had not courage enough for that. Truly it is harder for a camel to go through the eye of the needle than for such a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heaven, the land of accomplishment. You will be what you will be. Let failure find its false content in that poor word environment, but spirit scorns it and is free. It masters time, it conquers space, it cows that boastful trickster chance, and bids the tyrant circumstance uncrown and fill a servant's place. Be not impatient in delay, but wait as one who understands, when spirit rises and commands the gods are ready to obey. Ella Wheeler Wilcox. You are a channel for power. There is no limit to the amount of creative force that will flow through you. The only limit to what you get is the amount that you use. Like the widow's cruse, no matter how much you pour out, there is just as much still available, but unlike the cruse of oil, your channel and your power grow with use. What are you doing to satisfy the urge in you? What are you doing to give expression and increase the creative force working through you? Many a man and woman has the urge to write or paint or sing or do some other worthwhile thing. But does he? No, indeed. He is not well enough known, or has not the right training, or lacks education or opportunity or influence. Or else he has tried once or twice and failed. What does that matter? It is not your responsibility if others fail in their appreciation. Your job is to express the creative force surging through you, to give it the best you have. Each time you do that, you are the better for it, whether others care for it or not. And each time you will give more perfect, more understanding expression to the creative force working through you, until sooner or later all appreciate it. You don't suppose the great writers, the successful artists, were born with the ability to write or paint, do you? You don't suppose they had all the latest books or finest courses on the art of expression? On the contrary, all that many of them had was the urge. The rest they had to acquire just as you do. The creative force flowing through you is as perfect as the rose in the bud. But just as the life in the rose bush evolved through millions of less beautiful forms before it perfected the rose, so must you be satisfied to model but crudely at first, in the sure knowledge that if you keep giving your best, eventually the product of your hands or your brain will be as perfect as the rose. Every desire, every urge of your being, is a creative force straining at the bonds of repression you have put upon it, straining for expression. You can't stand still. You can't stop and smugly say, look what I did yesterday, or last week, or last year. It is what you are doing now that counts. The creative force is dynamic. It is ever seeking expression, and when you fail to provide new and greater outlets for it, it slips away to work through some more ambitious soul who will. Genius is nothing but the irresistible urge for one particular channel of expression, an urge so strong that it is like a mountain torrent and flood, sweeping trees and bridges and dams and everything else before it. So don't worry about whether those around you recognize your talents. Don't mind if the world seems indifferent to them. The world is too busy with its own little ways of expressing life to pay much attention to yours. To get under its skin, you must do something to appeal to its emotions. You see, the world in the mass is like a child. Prod it, and you make it angry. Preach to it, or try to teach or uplift it, and you lose its attention. You bore it. But appeal to its emotions, make it laugh or weep, and it will love you. Love you and lavish upon you all the gifts in its power to give. That is why it pays Crosby millions, and a great educator only hundreds. Yet the name of the educator may live for ages, while the entertainer will be remembered only until a better one displaces him. So forget the immediate rewards the world has to offer and give your energies to finding ways of better expressing the creative force in you. You are expressing it every day and hour. Try to express it better, to find ever greater channels through which to work. If your urge is to write a story, put into it the best you have, no matter if you know you could get by with a third of the effort. Work always for perfection, knowing that thus only can you be sure of the greatest help of the creative force working through you. I can do all things through Christ which strengtheneth me, said Paul. And you can do all things through the creative force working through you. That creative force is striving for a perfect body, perfect surroundings, and perfect work. It is not its fault when you manifest less than these. Depending upon it, it is not satisfied with anything less. So don't you be. If you have the courage to refuse anything short of your ideal, if you have the dogged perseverance to keep trying, there's no power in the heavens or the earth that can keep you from success. It's the way every great success has been won. Do you suppose if Michelangelo or Da Vinci had an off day and painted some imperfect figures into a painting, he left them there? Do you think he explained to his friends that he was under the weather that day, and so, while he was sorry it spoiled the picture, he could not be held accountable for it? Just imagine one of these great painters letting something less than his best go over his name. Why, he would cheerfully destroy a year's work rather than have that happen. The moment he noticed it, he would hasten to scratch out the offensive figure, lest others might see it and judge his work by it. Or even if no one was ever to see it, he would do it because it failed to express the genius that was his. That is how you must feel about your work before ever it can attain greatness. The creative force working through you is perfect, all-powerful, and without limit. So don't ever be satisfied with less than its best. Follow its urge. Use every atom of strength and skill and riches you have to express it, serene in the knowledge that, like Paul, you can do anything through the Christ working in you. Andrew Carnegie said, "Here is the prime condition of success, the great secret: concentrate your energy, thought, and capital exclusively upon the business in which you are engaged. Having begun on one line, resolve to fight it out on that line, to lead in it, adopt every improvement, have the best machinery, and know the most about it. Finally, do not be impatient, for, as Emerson says, no one can cheat you out of ultimate success but yourself." Have you ever climbed a high mountain? Did you notice, as you kept getting higher and higher, how your horizon rose with you? It is the same with life. The more you use the creative force, the more you have to use it. Your skill and power and resources grow with your use of them. From earliest infancy, the creative force is trying to express something through you. First, it is purely physical, a perfect body, and through it the generation of other perfect bodies. But gradually it rises above the physical plane and strives to express itself in some way that will leave the world a better place for your having been in it, a memory of noble thoughts, splendid deeds, obstacles conquered and ideals won. Do your part by never falling short of your best, no matter how small a thing you may express. Perfection, you remember, is made up of trifles, but perfection is no trifle. It doesn't matter how small or seemingly unimportant your job may be. You have the same chance to attain perfection in it as the greatest artist has in his work. It doesn't matter how little others may believe that any good or great thing can come from you. It was said in the scriptures, of a far greater than you can there any good thing come out of Nazareth? Who knows what good things may come from you? There's nothing to fear. You're as good as the best, as strong as the mightiest, too. You can win in every battle or test, for there's no one just like you. There's only one you in the world today, so nobody else, you see, can do your work in as fine a way. You're the only you there'll be. So face the world, and all life is yours to conquer and love and live, and you'll find the happiness that endures in just the measure you give. There's nothing too good for you to possess, nor heights where you cannot go. Your power is more than belief or guess, it's something you have to know. There's nothing to fear. You can and you will, for you're the invincible you. So set your foot on the highest hill. There's nothing you cannot do. Anonymous.